we've had it working internally for a very long time, but it's not been release ready yet. But one of the neat things that Unity 2020 includes is actually the first implementation of OpenXR, which means that we can actually take all of our existing VR implementations and throw them in the bin, and then set the bin on fire and toss it out a window, and let someone else deal with it. So by doing that, it means that we're going to be re-implementing our VR system pretty much from scratch. But this should hopefully be the very last time we ever need to do that. And it's going to make it easier for us to maintain going forward, because right now we use lots and lots of middleware. That middleware is of mixed quality. Some of it's okay, some of it's absolutely terrible, and we've been limited by choices. But going forward, that will be an opportunity for us to do a better job. Know that right now our implementation is not so great. Part of that as well, we'll be exploring some of the things that we've been building recently. And this is where I've been talking for too long and my voice is probably going to begin to break up. So please feel free to interrupt me. That is a suggestion. But some of the things we've been doing, for instance, for mobile, as you know, we've been working on a new mobile user interface since the middle of last year. Since about April, May last year, we've been working on a really ground up new mobile interface that I showed off a bit at my end of the year demo. And some of that stuff will also be translating into VR, because we're able to do things like adapt many of the mobile touch-centric interfaces to VR touch-centric interfaces. There's a surprising amount of overlap between UI design there. So we'll be getting rid of more of the desktop UI that we've got and making it a bit more friendly. But ultimately, that is something that we are looking forward to, and I know Joshua is very keen to throw our VR libraries into the bin as much as I am.
That'd be nice to go standalone on the Quest as well, without having to be wired.
Yes, yeah. I've actually got a standalone Quest build at the moment using our old VR implementation. It's not my favorite though. One of the big problems with our existing VR implementations is that the Oculus library we don't use the Oculus one directly. We use a third-party system that wraps it and gives us some additional quality we need. One of the problems with that one is that it ramps the physics frame rate up too high, and some of the frame rate in the Quest isn't great. The rendering performance is fine. The physics are fine. So when we do this one, we'll also get much better frame rates on the Quest, which I am looking for. Quest is actually a great headset. So we can say what we will about Facebook or Meta, but as far as sort of consumer, easy to pick up headsets, definitely one of the ones that I recommend the most.
Adam, could I ask a non-technical question? But I remember you were meeting with Philip Rosedale last year in a break room event, and you were asked what you would recommend for 20 or 30-year-olds who are starting in university or going back to university if they wanted some kind of a career path in the future metaverse. And you commented on a blending of both artistic skills and computer/scientific skills. Could you say more on that now that we've seen all the media hype about it over?
It's the same as it was always. The crossover between artists and programmers has always been a problem. Programmers know how to program, artists know how to create, but when you need someone to build something that helps artists create, nothing helps more than being an artist. And in that respect, you obviously need the programming background to be able to create those tools. But when it comes down to it, if someone showed up to our office tomorrow with a resume that said they were a trained 3D modeler and artist with a high quality portfolio, and they're also a good programmer, they would be hired in a heartbeat, because the number of people who have both those skill sets is still really small. It's a career path in the game industry called a technical artist, but we're always interested in that, and especially as time goes on and we're going to be starting to look towards more unique ways of building content. Some of the most interesting things in 3D right now are not anyway related to how we've been building things in the past. We're looking at things like machine learning for generating objects and scenes and environments. That's got a huge amount of potential. I think that's one of the most exciting things that's happened in computer science in 50 years is just how good machine learning is getting today. But there's also other different ways of creating content. A good example is the fact that today we use triangles and vertices. That's how we define every single object in a 3D environment. But that has limitations. One of the big limitations is that you've got a finite number of triangles and vertices available to you. Whereas there's interesting ways of representing 3D models that aren't made out of meshes, using things like signed distance fields and various volumetric rendering approaches, and that can allow for near infinite levels of quality with vastly smaller file sizes. You can have spheres that you can zoom in as far as you want to go, and it'll still be smooth. You can have terrains that use fractal generation algorithms that you can go down to the dirt level. Those kinds of things sort of blend a combination of sort of procedural geometry, which is sort of generating it through math, and also the sort of the artistic hands of being able to manipulate that as an artist and shape it in the way you want, but getting all these additional benefits while also delivering smaller file sizes, which is perfect for use in virtual worlds and what have you. So I think that if you've got those skills, if you've got the background with either math or programming, and you've got some artistic skills, I think that sets you up in a really good way for the future. Because the way we do things now, we know how things work as they do today. There's only so many new ways that you can innovate rendering a mesh today, because we've been doing it for 30 years. All the but these new ways that are sort of emerging, I think, are going to be the future, and the potential that they have is revolutionary. So I think it's an exciting time. And if you are a student, that's exactly what I would be learning and teaching.
I'm going to build on that a bit. I'm pushing the art side a little bit, if it's not obvious, but you said that the generational techniques, machine learning, and that makes me think of, you had a special office hours with another Adam, whose last name I forget, who
Adam
runs
Goodrich. Yep.
Gaia, and I sent some of the videos to a cup of tea here because in his project, he and his students recreated actual islands off the coast of Ireland from Google Earth and uploaded them
Yep.
using spatial.io. Can something like that be done with this environment? Or
Yeah, I mean, look, the stuff that Adam showed off works in here. You can certainly upload content created with Gaia. I know many people do that. That kind of approach is both supported today, but also I think that more native and built-in support is what I want to work towards over the sort of coming years. Particularly, I think that there's a lot of things I can talk about, and actually, this is a tangent I can go into, but it'll be a big tangent. So, the question of if people want to hear about it, but I have been working for quite some time on getting a sort of what we call our mainland system, but that's required re-engineering a huge amount of our backend to support. It's a very big change to our backend, but it's one that I think is going to deliver some really big benefits over time. Doing large geography, that's one of the things that we will be supporting as a result of this. My test environment is about 88 gigs worth of content, which for a volumetric height field is actually a lot of content. The scene is about 130 kilometers square, and it's about 50 kilometers high, with high levels of detail through there. It uses a mix of procedural geometry using an approach very similar to what Adam does in Gaia, using a rule set driven system. That again, I mean, what Adam builds there is exactly what I'm talking about. It's procedural content. It's using math to sort of define and lay out 3D environments. Yes, you're an artist. You're picking the rules. You're adjusting the rules, and you're using play. But ultimately, he's built the tools by knowing both math and art. It's sort of the blend of the two. And some of the stuff that we're working towards does exactly the same things. Very large environments, but it also uses a rule set based system for indicating where objects should be placed and how often they should appear, what the terrain looks like. All those bits and pieces are defined more through math than sort of an artist going around and painting every single grain of dirt. It enables a single person to build and be far more productive than they could otherwise, but it also enables someone to build content that is richer and deeper than again what one artist could do. Procedural systems aren't perfect, though. I think that the good counterpoint to that one is No Man's Sky, a PlayStation game. I think it's on PC as well. And No Man's Sky is sort of that sort of worst case with procedural when it launched. It's gotten a lot better since, where you've got a million worlds, but they all look kind of the same because they all use the same rough generation rules. Really, I think that the best situations merge a human hand with the generation rules so that you can create lots and lots of unique environments a lot faster, but you don't lend entirely on the procedural systems, because the procedural systems left to their own without sort of curation and modification by artists tend to produce very uninteresting. So, what do we
Yeah,
want to
me
go
and
from there?
Carson were talking about the mainland this week. Actually, it's good that you brought that up. I think
Yeah.
Carson just asked a question in the chat about it as well.
I was going to say that. Carsten says, from the way I understand it, the mainland system would implement in Origin.
Yep, we use a 32-bit position offset plus another 32-bit but not floating cell offset. Each cell has a size. Currently, that size is set to 384, but it actually can be adjusted on the fly in the system. So the float basically covers from 0 to 384. And evenly distributes there. At that kind of scale, floating point, standard 32-bit floating points are pretty accurate. You'll be able to get significantly less than 1 millimeter precision at that distance. We evaluated doing just a pure 64-bit float, which is another approach to do it. But the cell system that we've got allows us to subdivide things on a very neat level. We can break something up into cells and then offload those between various servers. Our long-term well, not long-term now because we're already doing it, but one of our goals is to enable one region to be supported by lots and lots of servers simultaneously so that we can create truly massive environments with large numbers of people. But yes, we do use a floating origin. From a scripting perspective, I haven't quite decided whether it's going to be completely transparent or not. I think it will be. Our scripting system already uses 64-bit precision floats at the low level, so if we implement that, we won't break any content, which is a nice adjustment. But certain components that we've built, things like vehicles, we're going to definitely need to do some updates to make sure that they behave nicely with the floating origin. Does require a fairly low level integration, particularly with things like interfacing with physics. Obviously, the Unity client-side physics that we do does not have a floating origin system built in, so there's a lot of hackery that's needed to make that behave itself. One way we may go there is that the physics scene is actually updated as you move around, so we just simulate the nearest 384 meters in all directions from you. And then when you drift too far, maybe 64 meters or so, we just reorient the entire scene. And hopefully that can be done transparently without causing physics glitches, because things like joints and so forth tend to be a bit unhappy when you teleport them, to say the very least.
What are region crossings going to be like when we do that?
Well,
hopefully not like Second Life.
No. Region crossings.
Although they're
we
supposed
use
to recently, someone was telling me, but
yeah. No region crossings like Second Life. We don't need to actually do a physical handoff. The servers can do that much faster. The model we have, we don't need to serialize the entire object. We only need to serialize some base parts about the object to be able to do a region crossing that way. And also because we rely on a hybrid of both server and client side for the physics scene, it means that a lot of trickery can be done under the hood to sort of disguise the handoff in a way that still looks relatively consistent, both yourself and other players watching you. Physics is one of those things that actually it's better if you do have a bit of don't look behind the curtain magic involved. Really, ultimately, all you need to give people is a view of the world that looks right. It doesn't necessarily need to look exactly the same to every other person. Sometimes you do need to keep it fairly in sync. So, for instance, vehicles, you do want to be able to do a race, for example, and have the results be relatively consistent with each other. And we already do some level of sort of client-side prediction and things to try and keep things relatively in sync, which works a lot better on the new network stack than it does on the old stack, I'll say.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Well, I have heard that the people have been using vehicles on the new test viewers quite a bit. I've heard that the results are a lot better. We've certainly found other scripts and other problem areas have sort of stopped being problem areas with the new stack. And our sysadmin loves us so much because our old server was actually a Windows binary, and I think our sysadmin absolutely loathes every Windows server that we've got floating around and is looking forward to the new one going out sideways. Anyway, yes, so I am rambling now, so please get me on track. Tell me what you'd like to hear about.
Yes, I would love to ask your perspective again on the VR thing. So I'm just going to kind of be blunt. So far VR seems to be either for entertainment only. It seems headsets seems to have this huge buzz and promise as of 3 to 5 years ago that never quite delivered. Yet Sinespace, bless your heart, supports it, and it's the only what I would call sophisticated platform, by which I mean you can build your own stuff and do a lot of, let us call it, Second Life type capabilities that none of the other platforms yet do. And I can say that from experience because AmVans here runs a monthly VR Exploder/Explorer club, touring 8 virtual platforms, each one of them twice a year, including Sinespace.
Yep.
And so it can be frustrating as heck to say, wow, what a visual experience, but I can't do anything in here. And a cup of tea, they are working with master's level art students who are using controllers and trying to create in VR. They're using spatial.io right now. So,
Yep.
so it seems like the only opening for VR is to build in virtual environments. And Sinespace at least has that much open, even though, as you said, there are no standards and it's still kind of a rough area. But where do you see VR fitting in? It's no longer the only game in town for the metaverse. At least CNET admits that. The metaverse is a lot broader than people seem to think. It might even include Zoom, for God's sake. So where do you see VR in particular fitting in, and how does it fit into where you see you leading Sinewave Entertainment in the next year or two? Over.
So our philosophy on VR is that we should have support for it because one day it will take off. But at the same point in time, I'm not going to invest huge amounts of resources into going VR first. Frankly, the resources I've got that I'm devoting into things is going into mobile. Mobile's more important to me. But that said, VR I think has a lot of potential. I mean, when you're in VR, which actually should be today, I was meaning to, but I've got to go wire up my headset to go do it because it's unplugged at the moment. Which actually is one of the sort of quirks of VR, is that it can be a bit of a hassle. But when you're in VR, there is definitely a greater sense of presence with other people around you. And I think presence is the most important part of a successful virtual world. But right now, there is so many teething problems with VR. I think that there's simple ones like, for instance, I've bought Oculus Quests for now 3 members of my family, other than me. I did that because I wanted to hang out with them while we were all in lockdown here. So I bought a couple. I bought like one for Christmas, then one for birthday, then another next Christmas around for other people. And it still took a lot of effort to get people actually in these. This is the average person. This is not highly technical people, but sort of going through the setup process, telling them how to do things, even just simple examples of trying to tell people what button on the controller is what, is still really complicated and really difficult for a lot of people to get their hands on. And the current headsets don't help. They're certainly lighter and more powerful than anything we've had so far, but they're still uncomfortable to wear for more than an hour. I think that really the optimal VR session experience seems to be somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes. It's not good for sustained usage, and reasons for that. Things like the weight, things like the heat, whether you get sweaty while you're wearing them. Those things are all real problems that I think are not solved yet. And until they are solved, there's going to be a real drag on large-scale consumer adoption. and I would always rather go for where the people are at the moment. Too hard to second. That doesn't mean that there isn't some really exciting opportunities coming down the pipeline. I think that Apple, they irk me for many reasons, but they're one company that I'm keeping a very close eye on the VR space. They've got sort of the right combination of hardware. The new M1 chip is fantastic, and they've got the right idea that it'll probably be a fairly lightweight device when they do that. That'll be comfortable to wear. It'll also probably cost more than an arm and a leg to buy when it does come out. But I think that until that sort of consumer and user friendliness issue is resolved with VR, it's still going to restrict itself to a fairly niche audience, and I'm going to be ready for it when it does become consumer ready. But at the same point, I'm not going to try and sort of make the market, because right now the hardware isn't good enough to make the market.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I know this is not your area; it's Digi's or whoever's. But from your perspective, is it a safe guess that the white label clients are not beating on Sinewave Entertainment's doors? We need VR headsets in our white label grids.
You would be actually amazed. I get more interest from the enterprise than I do from you guys on VR. I get a lot of interest from. It's probably not what you expect to hear, but VR is being used in a lot of very interesting ways in companies. We've got the people who have been talking to us about VR have been doing something with either manufacturing, or they've been doing construction, or they've been doing some kind of actual simulation work where precision and being there is actually really important. And for them, there is actually quite a bit of demand for them for a VR solution. Now, my problem with that is that both our existing VR implementation, I don't think is actually enterprise ready, but also I'm not 100% sure that anything VR right now is enterprise ready. There is a lot of sort of the margin for tolerance, the tolerance for error in enterprise stuff is so thin and so fine. When we're doing events, and I can talk a little bit about the white label side because we're doing lots of events, you can't have more than, say, 1 or 2 people out of 500 able to get into the event. Everyone has to get in. That everyone's microphone has to work. Everyone's computer needs to work. Because if you have even a small number of people unable to actually get into the platform, then they're never going to use the platform again. And that kind of sort of margin of error is so thin, and I think it's unachievable at the moment with the VR headsets and VR drivers and VR applications that exist today. You don't want to have your product team designing a pair of footwear in VR collaboratively on the internet, and then the designer can't get it, because that would just doom the entire day. One of the benefits of the real world is that it doesn't spontaneously fail, not too often anyway. And until you can get that level of reliability, I don't think it's safe for us to sell, even though there are.
Let me introduce Magua is to your front right. Magua is Murat Gomez from Çağ University, Turkey, and he's here now listening to you, Adam. He teaches virtual reality for, believe it or not, marketing and sustainability to business students.
Yep.
And I think Galen has a question, so I'm gonna go off mic now for Galen.
Go for it. Galen, feel free to ask whatever you want to ask. Everyone's here for another half an hour.
Galen, is your mic working? We're not hearing you.
Yeah.
No,
No, we can't. Try change your mic sensitivity, or check your headset in the settings. If you want to write up the question, I'm happy to read. Okay, let's return to mobile. How is that app coming along? Good. I don't know. I showed off a good demo on the anniversary event about 6 weeks ago. The team that's working on that is working quite hard on getting all of the UI converted to being mobile friendly. They're doing chat at the moment. That's a rather difficult one to solve with mobile, but they're making good progress. I really want to get that one out as soon as possible. I'll add that there's probably two things holding us back from a widespread mobile release. Issue number one has been user interface and getting that one ready. The second thing that's holding us back has been a long-standing shader issue with Unity. I've been working with the Unity team now for about 2 years for a bug I reported about 4.5 years ago. Over the last 6 months, I've been working really intensively with this team to fix some of the resource allocation issues that Unity has on mobile devices. We've got some solutions, but I've got another workaround which we'll be deploying in the short term to limit things like the number of custom shaders and things that are loaded at once on mobile, which will help dramatically. But we're aiming to sort of get those things up. They're pretty high priorities. I think that I'm going to try and prioritize getting a new and improved mobile beta out sort of sometime in March, April. Would be when I'd like to do it. We've got to get our current releases out of the way, but I'm certainly going to be advocating in our release meetings to sort of polish that stuff up after we've got the 2020 release out the door. Because it does make things better. We will be focusing tablet first. Tablets, the interface on tablet works really nicely. Mobile phones not quite there yet. Okay enough to use, but you are definitely do a lot of precise tapping, which and the UX and UI teams need time sort of getting with that part of it. But yeah, absolutely, I want to get that one out as soon as possible because it's where people are today, and it's where we should be. So there's a second question about timescale for the Superlight viewer going live. So the Superlight viewer has been going through user acceptance testing at the moment. So we've got a new release process. It's a bit slower than the old one, but it's also more reliable as at getting things out the door. We have a sort of a development process which goes from planning, development, then it goes through QA, and then finally it goes to what we call user acceptance testing, where we get actual people to give us feedback on it, make sure we've got it right. The Superlight viewer is going through UAT at the moment. It's almost been released a couple of times now, but there's sort of one or two issues holding it back. Dig4j is the person you need to hound to get an exact date on when it goes live, but I would be saying it going live in 1 or 2 weeks. And the Superlight viewer is our new network protocol. It's been a ground-up rewrite, designing a new network protocol for Sinespace and sort of metaverse applications in general. It's really hyper-speed, high-performant, and it allows us to cram absolutely crap loads of people into one scene. We did a test in late December where we had another 650 people logged in, and that was mostly working until we enabled people to spawn vehicles, and then we ended up with 50 vehicles in the scene, and it got a little bit messy, but we'll optimize that one down.
A cruise ship
It
as
was
well.
fun. Yeah, the cruise ship,
yeah.
and God knows what else people spawn. The tests are chaotic. I do encourage people to join them. We're actually provisioning some really big hardware right now. Some big beefy processors. We're actually getting some AMD EPIC chips custom fitted into a dedicated server for us, so we can actually have a 128 core machine for seeing just how big we can make the scenes, how many users throw in, because with a 8-core generic server, we're getting sort of 500 plus people in a scene. We really want to try and get up to the sort of 2,000-3,000 range. Throwing hardware at the problem, we think, will help quite a lot. But yeah, that one's coming out soon. There's a lot of other improvements in that viewer too. Things like new outfit window and various other bits and pieces that I think people are going to enjoy, and a lot of bug fixes and a lot of time spent finding the UI. The other thing that we are working towards a monthly release cadence. We've been held up on UAT a couple of times, which has sort of sabotaged the process, but I would rather sabotage the process than release broken stuff. So that's going to, we're still working on the monthly release cadence. I should note that while that release is in UAT, the Unity 2020 release is parallel. So that should be out. Final steps on that one, assuming it doesn't get held up on UAT as well. Question: for what version of Sinespace will high fidelity sound be used? Please Also, just feel free to break me up because I know Vivox does. My voice cuts out if I speak for too long. So please feel free to interrupt me and talk, because otherwise I will break up. What version was high fidelity sound used? The first desktop viewer with high fidelity sound is this super light viewer, what we call the orange release. Color coding our every color of the rainbow with the viewer we're on now is the red release, low release, and so forth. But the orange release, which is our super light one, also includes high fidelity sound for break room. Does not include it on the public grid yet, but I have some good news on that one. High fidelity have obviously changed owner recently. I know that's been in the news.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happened when they changed ownership was that we've now got the rights to run the high fidelity software ourselves on the back end. So we're now hosting high fidelity ourselves, which means that we've got some different pricing pressures, and we are definitely looking at bringing high fidelity audio to the grid now. The
Great.
previous pricing model was not really.
Lost you, Adam.
There we go. See, I told you, you're going to have to break me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're looking at the pricing model, but there's been a big change. We think that actually will help us use it because, yes, Vivox has some fun issues.
So I'd like to kind of keep
One of them.
building on the white label thing you surprised us with, that you're saying you're getting a lot of interest from your white label clients, whose importance obviously is they keep the company in the green and going and growing.
Yep.
Is it simply because there's so much media hype and they just want to know what is it about, or is it because they really, really, really personally find VR that enthralling and engaging? And second, are any of them using your high fidelity, higher quality yet? And are they giving you feedback on saying, yeah, we want that and we want to add that to our plan? So the two questions, the VR and yeah.
Yep, there's a whole bunch of questions there. There's what kinds of things are people buying for, and then there's the question of high fidelity. I'll answer high fidelity first because it's a very simple one. We've been using high fidelity for our enterprise clients now for about 9 months, I think. The quality is just so much better. Vivox, unfortunately, because I'm breaking up now because I'm talking to it for too long straight, that's the kind of thing that really kills its use in the workplace. So we've been using high fidelity for quite some time now. And those users have been very appreciative. The quality is really good. We haven't had a complaint since we deployed it. So that's some good news on that one. Now, on the types of applications people are building, there's a mix. Some of our older clients, the ones that we've been talking to for quite some time, even sort of prospects that we've been talking to for 6, 12, 18 months, for them, there often is very, very serious real use cases behind us. We've got one group who do training, and they do training with primary care operators, training nurses and staff and so forth. And they've got a very, very complex scripted training system, which is really good. One of the most impressive. For them, they've got a real use case, real users doing really interesting things and getting good results. What we like to see. Certainly, since Facebook changed their name, we have got a lot of interest from companies who just need to be able to say we're doing something with the metaverse. And I'm not going to say no to them, but a lot of those cases are very much them taking the platform and just experimenting and exploring. They don't have firm use cases in mind. They're more interested in seeing what they might be able to do with their business. And for them, there's not too many discrete applications at this point. Provide support and services.
Okay, you mentioned the press release about Philip obviously working with Second Life with high fidelity and blah blah blah. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. Wonderful! Isn't it great to have all this hype coming since last year on the metaverse and what is it? And no, it's not that. Yes, it is. Yes, it isn't. It can't. I feel it cannot help but be, a case of a rising tide lifting all boats. But what should what have we not asked you about how you see all this? This has been your area, your thing, your expertise for many years, ever since you helped build up OpenSim and so forth. What should we be asking you that we haven't asked you yet? Over.
You should be asking me what my thoughts are on things like open standards and open protocols are. It's a question that
Adam?
no one has asked me.
What are your thoughts on open standards?
I think that they're a really, really good idea. I think that we have got a world where people have learned a lot of lessons in the last decade. There's a good example with the duopoly that controls our mobile phones, Google or Apple. Both cases, both Google and Apple decide what software you're allowed to run, how you run it, what that software can do. And it's been good for some users. For people who want to be able to go to an app store and download a bit of a software and know that it's been vetted to do roughly what it says it does, that's been beneficial. What hasn't been beneficial so much is some of the policies that have strung along with those. For example, there is a lot of business models which are not compatible with those kinds of app store cuts. If you take a look at you can look at the fight Spotify had with Apple as one example, but there is other examples as well where people have not been willing to bring their business to these platforms because it doesn't justify the investment. Very, very large, complex software we don't see on mobile phones. It does not exist. If you look at things like, for instance, Microsoft Office on mobile version, they are simplified parodies of what they could be. And the reason that they are that is because they exist to fill a gap. They exist to fill the gap that someone sent you an email to open the application. But they don't exist to stretch the bounds of what a mobile platform could. Now, I realize this is a bit of a circular point, or a long meandering point, but I promise it does actually come back to a home, which is that lots of big companies in this space have realized that they don't want to get locked into a duopoly again. They don't want to build on one particular platform. What they want to do is they want to have an ecosystem where they can build and deploy to anywhere. And as a result of that, I think that there's a lot of wariness among people who are thinking carefully that they don't want to build for one virtual world platform. They don't want to build for Horizon, they don't want to build for anyone because they don't want to be beholden to a platform operator exclusively. Because they have learned those lessons. They do want to build rich interactive apps that push the boundaries of what the platforms can do. And as a result of that, I think that there is going to be a demand from the market, not a request. It'll be a demand from the market that what you do has got some capability for interoperating with other environments, other platforms, other standards, so that people can be confident that they control the destiny of their. So I think that one of the most important things that's going to happen in this industry over the probably next 2 years, I don't think it's going to appear tomorrow, I don't think it's going to appear next year, but it will take a while to come up there, is that there will be standards emerge, and I'm very interested in following them. I think that there's a lot of benefits. I think there's more wins than losses there are for having an open ecosystem than there are closed ones. There's complexities, there's problems, there's things you need to think about, like content protection and how do you stop piracy, how do you enable creators to get a fair return in an open. I think these are all actually solvable problems. I think that we can solve those issues while still having a platform that can survive any one entity and can be grown to encapsulate the rich ecosystem that exists on, say, the web today, where anyone can build something complex and amazing.
I'm going to interrupt you again so that your voice resets. Akuppa has to leave. He's got a hard end right now, so I'd like to thank Akuppa for coming here today from Ireland. And just a reminder for the new folks, Akuppa is from Ireland. Friend him. He teaches virtual worlds in Ireland. Magua here, who's going to stay, teaches virtual worlds in Turkey. And friend him. And where did you go? Who's the other? Oh, Am Vance, if she's still here, teaches virtual worlds in the country of Colorado, Colorado State, rather. Friend her. And Metabasalt here, who just popped in, actually teaches in Virginia, but he's an old friend with Adam. So I'm going to shut up now. Your voice is reset. Back to you, Les and Adam.
Right, let's see. Who else has got a question here? Few comments and statements. How long before marketing Sinespace? Good question. The answer to that one is when it's ready, which is also the worst answer I can give you. But one of the things we've learnt, painfully, expensively, over time, has been that it's better to get something done and then market it than it is to market it and then complete it. And we've had a pretty hard shift inside the company over the last 6 months, particularly on focusing on scrapping deadlines and just replacing it with what we've got at this point in time gets released. And for the marketing efforts, we do want to do it this year. We've got a couple of people lined up that we're talking to sort of in that. But we'd like to do it this year, but I want to make sure that the platform is rock solid before we do that. That means we've got rock solid mobile support.
Yeah, mobile's where it's at.
Yep, we've got to finish overhauling the user interface and get that right. We've got to get the new user journey or user experience right. We've got various other bits and pieces that I'd like to get us right before we do that, because if we throw crap loads of money at marketing and it's not spent very well, then we don't get another shot at that one. And do a really big marketing campaign, you get one shot only, because investors won't give you another big bag of money to burn if you screwed it up the first time. So we are being careful on that one, but it is the firm aim. Personally, and this is something I've said before, is that my personal focus and the thing that I have the most interest in, public grid. That's always been my big interest in the platform, and I'm always the big champion for it. So I'd like to see that stuff all finalized and getting off the wagon this year. I definitely do want to get the ability to strip the beta label.
Hello, game devs. Here's how easy it is.
Almost at Gmail levels of 7 or 8 years. We're not horribly far behind, so good to get that one off. That's definitely the prerequisite to doing a big market. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, a combination of coding and 3D modeling. Is there a specific type of 3D modeling or just in general? So I'm referring mostly to procedural manipulation, whether that's manipulating triangle meshes or sign distance fields or other kinds of things. I think that's that combination of art and programming, which is really essential. Some of the things that I'm also looking at internally, I've got a ton of side projects in this platform, way more than I've ever revealed. But one of them has been exploring things like doing sign distance field based primitives, which allow you to do SDF union and subtractions and in a way that works really nicely. That's something I would love to explore a bit more as I get some time. Lots of these things I do on the weekend, but sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work, and if they do work, they do get thrown into the backlog eventually. But really, when I was talking about coding 3D modeling, it really is about procedural generation, getting good at that, because I see that as the future. Okay, so next question. How stable are virtuals uploaded to the Sinespace servers using the 2020 EP? They're very stable if you're using the 2020 viewer. If you are using the older viewer, they are not very stable, but the good news is that when we release the 2020 viewer, we will be doing a hard migration, forced to upgrade, whether you like it or not. The content's not quite as backwards compatible as we. It would be nice to manipulate mesh vertices in Lua. I think someone asked about this. It went up to my desk. I said yes. With some limitations on memories and things. So let's find out where that is, because I think that would be good to have. Okay. Will the Sinespace web pages update? Yes, they will. We will have we've actually to let slip. There is a whole new sort of style guide and brand guidelines and things that we had put together about a year ago, and they look fantastic, and we've been waiting to deploy them, and that'll get deployed when we do them up. Got all that stuff. It's actually already been done. Just need a bit of time to get those up and out. when is the 2020 viewer out? There is a version. If you scroll way back into the Discord, there is some versions in there. I think our build server stopped kicking them out for the public ones, so I need to check upon why that's the case. But there is some in the Discord experimental viewers channel.
Adam, could I
Right,
ask
next
you a
question.
question
Hard upgrade.
about that? Let me call me skeptical, but are you going to test the 2020 viewer in the main grid and then release it to the white label grid, which is what I would do if I were you, because we are known experts, if I may brag about the group here, at whatever you think is stable, we break it for you, and then you say, oh.
I know. I say the bug reports. They do actually
Yeah.
get filtered. Every bug report I assure you someone reads, and it's often me. Actually not often now. We've got so many QAs now that they do get them before I can see them. But yes, for the Superlight viewer, that actually is also our plan. We're releasing it just here a little bit first. We upgrade the white label clients on a much more relaxed schedule. Really, they're looking at sort of 2 updates a year. Is what we're doing for the white label side, because we really do want to keep that as stable as possible. Here we can be a little bit more flexible and giving you guys new stuff sooner than there, because they've all got real business purposes. If that training organization, for example, that I was talking about before, doing nursing training, has the platform break, then they're not going to be very happy because their business is on the line. So yes.
Just a quick reminder, 5 minutes to go for your
yes,
got a
and I
hard
have
stop.
a hard cut, so I am like going to be out of here on the minute. So what questions do we want to prioritize? I've got a question here about the hard upgrade. That's a pretty straightforward one. Hard upgrade means it's a forced update. You'll be required to update to log in, but there'll be plenty of time to. All right, who's got, let's say, one last good meaty question?
YouTube.
I'm surprised that hasn't been brought up sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Okay, fine. That's a good meaty question, and one
Yes,
that
meaty.
I can answer. YouTube support is painful, as you may know. So there's 2 ways you can do YouTube embed. You can do a sort of native implementation, which is what we do, where we actually download the video file and play it back. Unfortunately, that's a little bit sensitive. YouTube likes to change stuff every now and then, and that's their prerogative to do so. But we have to chase them along. What we've done in the network stack viewer, the new one that's coming out, and this is the preview viewer now, I think it is on preview staging. That one we actually use the same Lua decoder that VLC uses. VLC actually have a small Lua runtime which they use for coding YouTube stuff, so that they can download that Lua file off the internet, keep it up to date without having to update VLC itself every time YouTube makes a small page change. We're now using the same Lua file as them, the same interpreter, and we're hoping that means that YouTube will be a little bit more stable going forward. It's not the easiest way to support. What I would like to do is actually get proper support in our web browsers. Now, right now, our web browsers do not support the H.264 codec, which is a video codec, very popular. And there's a reason for that. That there's some licensing complications, and the person who maintains our web browser support is not.
It does play YouTube quite well, though. Me and Hinkley were testing
YouTube
over the weekend.
Does support more than H.264. So YouTube supports it supports OGP, which is the OG Theora codec, which is free. It's got the VP9 codec and a few others, which it will switch to if H.264 is not enabled, which does allow YouTube to mostly work in the browser. Browser-based solutions are better, but there is issues with
the adverts.
Yeah, I would like a better solution. At some point in the near future, we will be switching towards a browser that does actually support. Or it's been something we've been. When that's ready to go, it'll get slipped in, and there may be some better options than YouTube. I would say things like Vimeo are actually far better.
On the short term, would it be possible to get the auto start working in our browser service? Because Hinkley, we're testing in community community hours or the buzz tomorrow. Hinkley's managed to pretty much make it all work, sync, stop, everything,
Nice.
apart from play. That's the
Okay.
only thing it can't auto play. Is that everyone has got to press play on the browser.
Interesting. We may be able to do something about that. As I said, our Chromium is compiled by someone else, but maybe we can get some small changes in. We can definitely look into that. I don't know what the exact limitation is. So if there is a detailed bug report indicating exactly which feature isn't working in the browser, that may be easier for us to dig into. If it's a bit more nebulous and requires a lot of investment.
Yeah, I'll stick a
I would
bug
like to.
report in, but it's basically to do with the embedded player not allowing you to autoplay videos.
Interesting. We can have a look. I think that there may be some options, so let's experiment. I know Eric actually may have already mentioned this bug or this issue to me earlier today when we were talking. So
because I was speaking to Eric about it. He said he was going to mention it.
Yeah.
But
all right, look, guys, I got 2 minutes, so let's wrap there. Hopefully that was a useful thing. I do want to do these more often, so let's get the next one scheduled in on a regular basis. Thank you, guys. Nice to see you all here. Good crowd.
Yep. Thanks for coming along, Adam. We'll schedule you in for the first week in February then.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'll see you all then.
Cool.
Okay, take care till
See you guys.
then.
Bye.
Bye,
thanks,
everyone.
Adam. Bye.